Not to brag or anything, but when I was in third grade, I was one of my school's spelling bee champions.
Okay.
And so I went to the district spelling bee and I did not study one of the lists as well as I should have, the eighth grade list. So prominent is a word that prominently figures into my spelling lexicon because that is the word that knocked me out of potential national spelling bee contention, where I would have crumbled under the pressure that they feel in that competition, but made it to district though. That's something, right? That's something I can put on my resume, something in my obituary when that comes at some point, as it does for all of us. Maybe third grade school spelling bee champion will be part of my legacy.
I had no idea where you were going with this, but opening with, not to brag or anything, but in third grade, had no idea where it was going from there.
Do you have, before I tell you where this is going
Okay.
ultimately, do you have any spelling bee memories from your youth?
Sixth grade spelling bee champion of my school, Austin Academy.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to get into being nicknamed Dictionary Boy on a trip to Johnson Space Center in seventh grade. That's not urgent or necessary. But yeah, no, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of cruciverbalists, the people who do the real work, the lexicographers who do the real work for the real workers to be able to do their real work. Big fan of words, but a bigger fan of trying to figure out where on earth this is going, Phil.
Okay, well, Dictionary Boy,
Okay.
as I'm going to call you for
All right, Captain Thesaurus.
into perpetuity. Spell this name, and this name could figure importantly in Austin FC's future come summer. Przemysław Płacheta.
SHEMP, Shemp.
That is oh so close, but incorrect. It is actually PRZEMYSL with a stroke, little line thingy through it, pronounced like a W, of course, Polish. AW, and then last name is PL with a stroke, sounding like W, ACHETA.
The word is, from fans doing abrupt research when a rumor surfaced, that he goes by Shemmy.
Yeah.
So I think
good
everybody will
and
be able
easy
to rally around that pretty easily.
Right. So if this player does come as rumor has it, and we'll talk about on the other side of this cold open, we're just going to call him Shemmy, right?
Yeah, I think that's the safe way to go.
And if he does sign, you know where he's going?
Where's he going, Phil?
Straight to my cut and paste list.
Emergency podcast. Better did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hurry, shut up, hurry, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. Emergencies are not happening anymore because we beat Houston in a Copa Tejas derby, and we are well on the way back to success. Train back on the tracks, everything looking rosy. Am I right? Was us? Is that
Phil,
what we are to take?
I gotta
from this?
say, I love it. I love it when the team in their play reveals that it's almost like they listened to our show and followed our instructions exactly. That's what I mean, I'm assuming that's what happened. It couldn't just be that they're very talented players who do their jobs well.
Of course they listen to our show.
It delights me. It delights me. And they listen at 1x, like civilized human beings, not savages who listen to things at 3x like I do, or 3x plus, frankly.
That
There you go.
I can't. Yeah, we had this conversation yesterday. Like I will go 1.5, and my wife thinks I'm nuts as a result of doing that. Like that's kind of pushing it for me though. Anything beyond 1.5, and it's hard. It's hard to hear. It's hard to absorb. But you're a 3x monster.
Yeah, Phil, I'm just built different, you know. It's heavy lays the mantle of being king of podcast listening. I listen to more hours of podcasts than there are in a week before a weekend.
And it's 3x.
Yeah, that's working in podcasting for you, man. Right. But now the Houston win, I got to say, I feel like there's something a bit lighter about both of us. We both It's almost like the effect of when Pope Francis was elected, and a kind of growly, sort of somber cardinal turned into this. He was renewed by the Holy Spirit, and a Franciscan friar friend of mine said, "Well, leave it to the Jesuits to, have like a glow surround them. We have that kind of papal glow. The Holy Church of Austin FC has been restored by, thank God, a win.
By a single win.
Phil.
It is more fun to write about wins
Yeah.
than losses and blown leads, though.
Yeah.
Although those send me into math rabbit holes, which are pretty fun for me, at least. But certainly this is a win the team needed. We talked about that. We talked about what might happen should they lose again, and in terms of playoff chances, in terms of just everything else they've got going. Although there is a new kind of nerdy data visualizer thing from some folks in St. Louis that friend of the show Chase Hoffman sent me yesterday, and then Matt Doyle has praised, and it says that even with that win, Austin has a 3% chance of making the playoffs. I don't know that I believe that. I think the chances are slightly higher than 3% at this point, but I'm gonna have to dig into that one. It's pretty and it's got some good charts. I just don't know that the data is necessarily pointing in the most accurate direction. 3% seems that seems slim.
Phil,
that seems like SKC's chances of making the playoffs.
Thank you for taking my usual chair at the. All right, can we talk for a minute about this data visualizer thing? There are a lot of numbers in here. I don't know about these numbers. I don't think this is false hope buoyed by the recency of a win. I think, let me quote Robin Fraser, Toronto's coach, Austin FC is a better team than their record thus far has reflected. That's something that I have believed the whole time. I just really need them to keep proving me right. Right. Or I get nervous. The thing that we talked about in the press box at the Houston match is, including that match, the 3 remaining home games, they really got to win those. Mm-hmm. They've really got to win those. The Minnesota away game, more of a kind of, I don't know, up in the air, feels pretty safe. Thinking that the San Diego FC away match is winnable unless they suddenly have a remarkable change of form. And frankly, the away match at St. Louis. St. Louis has had an okay week. I'll give them that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that makes them anything close to favorites for Sunday. I think the renewed energy for the home team, what looks like multiple guys coming back from injury, one most prominently, another similarly prominently, but not quite as long of a wait prominently. For me, regardless of how many managed minutes those guys end up playing, I feel like the table is set for things to go reasonably well, aside from the aberrations that you can't control, sudden injuries, re-injuries, that kind of thing. It feels like this gauntlet of winless except for 2 has been something that's informed the amount of grit and the amount of adversity that these guys are able to contend with. And it's something that, looking at the back half of the season, I would rather they be tried now than when it is an entire back half of the season kind of a slide that they could fall into, where hopefully what we are seeing is the beginning of a recovery curve. That's what I'm seeing. And until these guys disappoint me and prove me wrong, that's what I think is happening. This is a team that can hang with LAFC. It's a team that can hang with Miami. And that draw being what it was, make no mistake, that embarrassed that ownership team. They thought they were getting an opponent that was easily beatable, easy to humiliate 5-0 at home. Right. And look what happened. It made one of the biggest cheat code rosters in MLS look like washed old men at various points.
When you are the visitor for the homecoming game, you have an extra motivation, right?
Exactly.
That's kind of how that works. Yeah. So what you're talking about dovetails nicely with a temperature check article I did midweek, which was literally titled Temperature Check.
Like I planned it.
Yeah. So 45 points, right? So generally, consistently the demarcation line between playoffs and no playoffs, right? So to get there still where they are, they have to get 1.46 points per game the rest of the way. So if you have, say, a 4-win, 3-loss, 3-draw stretch, that gets you there because that's a 1.5 average. So that gives you the idea of the clip that you would have to play on. However, with these 5 matches, which I called arguably the easiest 5-match stretch of the season for the
Mm-hmm.
team. You might concur with that.
I think that's
If
reasonable.
they get 13 points out of that, right? So drawing at Minnesota, winning everything else, that seems like kind of a tall order, but given the opponents, given what we've seen from them in this game and some of the aforementioned games, if they can do that and have some late game defense, then I think 13 points is attainable. What needs to happen then the rest of the way? What kind of clip they have to play out beyond that? 1.16 points per game. So they can make up a lot of ground here and get into a position where they could absorb some losses and still get into the playoff places. And again, I'm not saying that eighth or ninth place is great, that eighth or ninth place is great, and that is what the team should necessarily aspire to. But given the injuries that have happened at the start of the season, given just the tumult of the season, all the competitions, the World Cup break, I don't know that I necessarily would consider that to be an abject failure if they again make the playoffs. I mean, again, Open Cup diminishes it a little bit. I do think that there is another tier that I would like to see this team get to. I would like to see them get to a perennial top 3, top 4 kind of position in the way that LAFC has done in their time, in the way that Vancouver is really beginning to do. But I would still like to, again, if they are getting into this kind of like 6 through 9 range and they're interesting throughout the playoffs, at least I think as a fan, that keeps me, again, speaking as a hypothetical fan and not the objective journalist that I
Sure.
am, it keeps me interested for at least another season. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you can see, and we'll talk about Shemi in a second here. And if he does get onto the team, what does that mean in terms of like kind of a potential summer rebuild and how this team can start to look in the sprint season in 27, because we might need to set our eyes forward to that a bit already, which seems kind of premature to be thinking about the next season, but got off to a weird start, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that we can get a lot more optimistic as a fan base based on what happens in these next 5 games. And I think that there are points definitely to be gotten and there's a better position to be in and the team can start looking like the team that we were hoping that it would
Yeah.
be when the 26th season started, before obviously the Owen injury and just the other kind of hiccups and difficulties that we've had this first part of the season.
I think the thing that we saw was people were able to catch their breath, and it's been shallow breathing for a while. But I think for people giving the club a chance and giving them their attention, we're about to head into a World Cup and there's going to be fall sports starting and October baseball and all that kind of stuff. For people to really keep paying attention, stay engaged, it's a matter of closing things out. To your point, various times over the last couple of months, the team has to maintain this run of form, and it's past the point of excuses. Injuries, that's one thing. There's only so much that you can do to control that, but they've been tested to the extent that I think they reasonably can be when it comes to their roster depth. What's the back half of the season going to look like? Do they find a juicy buyer for Bidu? Maybe they've got to sell somebody to roll up some gam. He seems like a pretty solid candidate for something like that. He hasn't been recently injured like Pereira or Wolf. Not
I mean, he
injured.
came out of a match early.
He came out of a match early, but not significantly injured, not like out for multiple weeks at a time injured. And I just cite that as an example. And that's just a hypothesis. I don't have anything on the like inside dirt on it or anything, but it's, you look at things and we're finally seeing things in the roster rebuild phase of where they actually can sell guys because they've got people on deals that makes them sellable. Who's going to get sold? When are they going to get sold? Are they going to find that interest during this World Cup break where a bunch of long-term stuff, like we'll talk about this theoretically incoming player that we think is a pretty reliable rumor because of where it's coming from. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that is going to happen during a very hot World Cup market that nobody could predict right now. But I think that things are set up such that if they end up selling Bidu, I think they'll be fine. Let's say they sell Kolmanic. I think they'll be fine.
At that point, you begin to not really have some left back depth.
Well, I'm not saying
Although
both. I'm not
this
saying
new
both at the
player,
same time.
this new player can play left back.
Yeah.
So
I'm saying if one or the other of them is sold, I don't think it's some huge disaster. You sell both of them, you better be bringing in reinforcements at left back pretty solidly. Maintaining form is the big thing. Maintaining level-headedness, maintaining focus. One of the things that I've mused on that I think there might be something to is social media has been a thing for a while. And we've talked about players getting off of their social media and that sort of thing. But I think the other layer of that I think has gone unremarked in professional football is this parallel reality time that we live in, where people live in completely different realities, have completely not comporting with reality perspectives on their career, their talent, the way that they are seen in the world. People live in unexpected echo chambers when it comes to perspective of who they are and who they can be. Huh?
Where's this going exactly?
Where it's going is I think that like some of the mentality stuff that I feel like we've seen in advance of the World Cup is, maybe some of the focus of some of these guys is, well, where is my next club? Where is my next step? Where it's guys that are focused not as much on the game plan, not as much on the thing that maybe they did a great job of on the training ground. And it's not even obvious to those of us looking at it where out in space they might be. And I'll dial back to Driussi as an example. Driussi had a very particular way of thinking about himself, his friend who was on the team who was underperforming, who really ran the club and called the shots and made the decisions and that sort of thing, which definitely didn't actually comport with the reality of who was actually making all the decisions at the club. And part of what factored into that deal of him going back to River was him and his agent painting themselves into a giant corner. And there could be some of that at play with some of the guys on the roster, but we have no way of knowing. We don't know who is gaming out their next steps, who is wanting to go back to their home country, wanting to go to Europe, that sort of thing. I think that we may see some shifts and changes over the World Cup break that at face value may be, oh no, I love that player, but there are loads of intangibles that we don't know about what these guys actually think of themselves, what they think their next step is going to be. And so it could be like a case of Driussi where just as the rumor started going, everybody was shocked. It was, oh my God, how's the club going to do without him? And then he was gone and was actually totally fine.
Do you have a sense of like who that might be, or is this just kind of like a hypothetical thing that you're floating?
It's really just a hypothetical thing. It's part of what I've kind of tried to rationalize. What is going on with some of these guys' heads? Like, what is going on with this guy? What is going on with this guy? And it's not just like a one-off thing, but it's difficult to track. It's not something that I have stat sheets for. But you look at it as, why is this guy suddenly going for highlight of the week and then not quite getting it? Why is this guy trying to be Mr. Big Tough attacking dude instead of doing build-up play and getting things into the final third and doing things like the really great build-up play that we saw against Houston? We've seen the beginnings of that build-up play, but then somebody decides to go off into left field, and it seems like best laid plans go awry.
Then you've got like Jaden Nelson, who goes out there with a calf injury. He knows he's injured. He's going to see how long he can go on it. He wants to help the team. He really does seem to like this team. And then he also definitely has his eyes on making the Canada national team. And he knows that getting a banger goal like he did, in the 13th minute of that game against Houston is going to help in that cause, even though if he is injury riddled going into June, I wonder he is on the fringes of that national team talent that Jesse Marsch might select from. But moments like that are real good. And I think they could use a player like him on that team. I would love to see him make it. But that he's locked in. Like, he's obviously locked in.
And I've beat the drum for this guy in the past, but Mirtu Uzuni, I think, deserves more credit than he's been getting for his run of form. And It's very easy to go, well, where are the goals? Why isn't he knocking in every single one? Why is he hitting the woodwork? Look, physics is what it is. Sometimes balls just don't go in. But the way that he has been, I put it this way, if Messi put in as much of a shift doing defensive work as Mirtu Uzuni does, I think Miami would be doing a lot better.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, he is 89th minute, 90th plus minute, like, still going after guys defensively. He is putting himself out there. It's not showing up in the numbers necessarily. He did get the goal against Houston, kind of a lucky goal, but for all the lack of luck that he's had, there's the ball bouncing off a body part from a John Gallagher shot, and that's 2 of his 3 goals. But he's deserving of at least 3 goals right now with how he's played. I mean, maybe it doesn't show up in the G plus necessarily. Maybe it doesn't show up in the underlying numbers of the real numbers, but you can see the effort. The eye test shows that he is definitely doing the work.
He's doing the work, and it's not showing up in any of the sexy numbers, but it's something that you watch him and you see a player who was having some focus issues last year, who was having some connection issues last year. Neither of those things are issues now. He is incredibly engaged, incredibly focused, incredibly tenacious. He sees an opportunity, he goes for it.
Right.
And that doesn't mean he is selfish with the ball every time. When he sees an opportunity to take a dude out, he is going to take a dude out. When he sees an opportunity to peel the ball off of somebody and send it ahead or send it across to somebody so that they can throw together some build-up play, he does it.
Well, three things. He's a year deeper into the league, so he understands it better. His wife's around more.
Yeah.
And his kid is older and he's getting more sleep and seeing his kid more. That all helps.
Those all make a difference. You know?
Yeah. We talked about this before. The year that left Dallas mid-season, Peter Musa, he was dealing with same stuff. New to the league, new kid, and then it was a big transition. And then Estevez left, and then all of a sudden he acclimated a little bit better, caught fire the second half of that season, continued on really good form. It was unfortunate timing for Nico in terms of staying in Dallas, but it sometimes, I think Goss theorem is true in a lot of cases. You can have raw talent and come into this league the first year and absolutely kill it. But for a lot of players, it takes that full year to understand the culture, the travel, the heat, all of that. I'm not saying that it's not hot other places, but you combine what the US is now dishing out in summer compared to all the other elements of it. You look at the last week, you look at Austin taking road trips to Louisville and Toronto and San Jose in an 8-day span. It's like, it's a big country, and y'all got to see big 2 countries, and y'all got to see a lot of it.
Yeah, when I'll keep beating this drum, man, when the domestic league involves a scale of travel distance-wise equal to the UEFA Champions League of Europe, a continental competition, it really does hit different. And it's not just minutes on a plane, changes in elevation, radical changes in climate, going from extremely muggy conditions to extremely dry conditions to extremely wet to extremely frosty. One of the things that I enjoyed seeing in the locker room after the Houston game was Christian Ramirez was trying to get Mirtu to come a bit out of a shell. He was like, they want to talk to you, man. Like they're happy for you. Like, go talk to them. And he had done an on-field interview and he went really hard, and I get it. Like, I totally get it. I don't expect these guys to talk to us every single time. But to his credit, he came and said hi to all of us. He didn't just scoot out like he has recently. I want more than anything for him to be able to embrace the joy of good results. Right.
Yeah. The CBA does say that we are supposed to be able to just go right up to them and talk to them when they are there. But every team is interpreting that a little bit differently.
Yeah. And my interpretation of the CBA is that we can always ask. We're not guaranteed an interview anytime we ask for one.
Sure.
That's the knife's edge that we dance on. What I'd love to see more than anything headed into a World Cup break, that I feel bad for him, for Alexander Svatok, who are both like the caliber of players who should be playing in a 48-team World Cup. My opinions about FIFA, that's a whole other show.
But there's also a lot of good Italy players that aren't going to be playing.
I hope for nothing more than to see Uzuni and Svatok get their flowers in this lead up to a World Cup that, I mean, by rights, both of them are the caliber of players to be playing in. And my hope is that what they're able to do in club soccer for the rest of the season gives them some of the satisfaction that they were both really hoping to have out of a World Cup.
But I am pretty sure, again, this isn't guaranteed, but I'm pretty sure Torres is going to make the team. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get because Uruguay is pretty loaded, but seems like at least we'll have one Austin player in the World Cup, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Thinking back to 2 cycles ago, this team wasn't even here. Of course, 2 cycles ago, the US was not painfully in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Coinciding with the book I wrote about the US winning the World Cup eventually, the men winning the World Cup eventually. But
Thanks, men's national team.
yeah, thanks.
Great
Thanks for
timing,
taking my
guys.
book sales. Really appreciate it. Good looking out for me. All right. Do we want to talk Shemi here?
Yeah, let's talk Shemi, man.
Okay. Yeah, let's kind of set the scene a little bit just to remind everybody. The secondary transfer window is starting July 13th and closing on September 2nd. From an MLS article that came out back in January, they pointed out with the secondary window extending into the month of September for the first time in 2 decades, excluding the COVID-adjusted 2020 season. The conclusion of the MLS window will align with top leagues from around the world, giving MLS teams a greater opportunity to acquire high-quality international talent in their run to the Audi MLS Cup playoffs. And then they remind us that during the 25 secondary transfer window, the summer window, Sun came over to LAFC, Rodrigo de Paul to Inter Miami, Thomas Muller to the Whitecaps, who need to be saved. And we might talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, so that is the scene that is set. So as we know it right now, Austin doesn't have any senior roster spots left unless indeed they have bought somebody like a John Bell is probably the most likely candidate for that down to a supplemental, and we just won't know it until we get to MLSPA Christmas, which should be happening soon, I would think. Usually the first salary release is happening around this time. I do not think I've missed it because usually my Blue Sky feed blows up about the time that gets released, which is typically how I know. But yeah, so we have this possibility of Przemysław Płacheta, who is currently with Oxford United. He is going to be available on a free because his contract is expiring with Oxford United, seemingly headed for relegation, right? Or are they definitely relegated at this point?
Yes, they are relegated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he can play left wing, he can play right wing, he can play left midfield. I think he can even play a little bit of left back. He can do it all. Maybe this is a speedier, blonder John Gallagher prototype. According to Transfer Market, he had his market value peak at 2.5 million euros back when he was with Norwich City, about the same time that he was doing some appearances with the Poland national team around 2021, 2022. He is now 28 years old, a little bit older, had a birthday here on March 23rd. I imagine if he gets signed, we're probably looking at maybe like a 2+1 contract. Some of the numbers I've seen, this might be in the 400 to 500K salary range. So not a TAM player, but again, a kind of lunch pail contributor of some of the sorts that tend to be necessary as glue guys in MLS, and the types that Roto seems to have been able to find in various places in Europe through his diligence. So, and again, you were talking about the rumors, so you want to get into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean,
how believable you think this is?
I'd rate it as highly believable because the source of the rumor on social media was the same guy who had the lead on Buka getting signed into the Polish league. He's got good sources. He's got a reliable track record. I think it's reliable enough. I think that the team he's coming from being relegated and that he hasn't played a bunch, that kind of stuff happens when a transfer is imminent, where either the player doesn't want to play or the team doesn't want to play him. So I don't know. I would take with a grain of salt, well, this looks like a bad signing. If anybody has those kinds of instincts, which I saw some of those reflexes firing off in various spaces in social media, I think we need more data before making anything approaching that kind of an assumption. We've seen a number of these kinds of rumors and these kinds of signings where it's like, who is this guy? Where is he coming from? What's the deal here? Where
apparently incredibly fast too, which I'm excited to see.
I mean, incredibly fast, big plus, big fan of that. Definitely need some more of that. Really need a lot of guys who can kick in the afterburners and go hard. Because there are a lot of guys who can cover a lot of space, but it's better if you're able to not have everybody be fighting for the top spot of most distance traveled over the course of a match, every single match. I don't know. At face value, I think it's interesting. I think I see some pluses. I see some areas for potential concern that I'd like to get more data to shore up where this one's coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just looking at this championship table, did Sheffield Wednesday like have some kind of penalty against them because they are on negative 3 points right now,
That's
which is
my.
otherwise
I remember
not
seeing something
possible.
about that, but I don't pay enough attention to the championship at present to be able to really weigh in.
They are 132 and 12, which is not good.
It is not.
Oxford Oxford is 11, 20, and 14, so they're 22nd out of 24 teams. You know who else is gonna drop to League One with them? Their
Who?
teams?
Who, Phil?
Leicester.
Oh,
Former
Leicester.
former Premier League champions Leicester City. Going to League One.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
I again, we could do a whole other show about the wild stuff that's going on in the English leagues. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know. I don't know, man.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What I do know is I like this one at face value. Let's get some more data. Let's see what else there is to learn about him. Let's hope he can handle the heat.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So, all right. The thing though, like if he is indeed coming in, as the rumor has it, somebody has to go out unless,
Right.
again, Bell is a supplemental. And then again, though, probably in terms of him getting playing time, yeah, you probably do need to get somebody out of that midfield. Again, I don't know what kind of moves are there. I imagine that fans kind of have their ideas of
Yeah.
who they want to see depart. There is one buyout still that's possible. That again that's a question. You've got Robert Taylor, who's been in and out of the lineup. You've had Basart Sabovic, who obviously has not been necessarily performing to the kind of level that maybe everybody hoped he would when he came in. There's questions about, seems like Pereira's going to stay and be an MLS lifer. Seems like it's too early for Wolf to go to a team over in Europe, especially recovering from the injury. People kind of want to see a little bit more from him before they decide to roll the dice on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all that's reasonable. Do we want to get into some St. Louis stuff before heading out?
Yeah, we can do that.
I was going to mention first 2,500 kids in the stadium get a 10-ounce Junior Yeti tumbler, which people will recall is the same shape as the Baby Yeti given out for the 2022 playoff game.
Oh, yeah.
But these, as I don't think they're laser engraved. I think they're just these colors. I am a fan of this particular form factor of Yeti, I should mention.
Okay.
Get on a soapbox for a moment. One of the things that I like about the way that they have marketed them as kid specific is, I'm not saying that I need a sippy cup, but I like the sippy cup aspect of what they've done with it, where it comes with a silicone straw and a silicone lid, which is way easier to clean than the standard Yeti tumbler lids. So yeah, if you like having a little 10-ounce Yeti, these are great for, you make a little thing of tea and want to take it somewhere and like to have a straw that isn't made out of metal or disposable or something like that. I think those are neat. So yeah, good giveaway. Okay. I expect to see them on Facebook Marketplace instantly. And then after the match, kids who come to the match wearing an Austin FC jersey will be given an opportunity to make a shot on goal. It is Kids Day at Q2.
Nice. Okay. All right.
What actual soccer stuff do we have to talk about, Phil?
Okay. Let's see. So St. Louis is coming. It is a Sunday 4:30 kick, which is unusual. St. Louis is currently 14th in the West, a 1-5-3 record. They have 9 goals scored this year. That is it. So that is kind of Austin 2025 vibes. They have 16 against. So it's been a rough season. Obviously, Edward Lewin, the big story with him, of course, is his wife has been battling cancer and passed earlier this year. So you'll see, I think, tribute patches like the rest of the season that the team's wearing, and he's coming back into form. He's been kind of their midfield engine over the last few years. We've seen him certainly excel against Austin in some past matches where St. Louis looked a bit better than Austin, but seems like this year that St. Louis is one of the more beatable teams in the West. And I got a chance to talk to Tom Timmerman a little bit, who is the St. Louis Post-Dispatch beat writer. I'm going to get his answers up here on Saturday about the same time that this podcast is coming up. So we explored a little bit why they're off to the slow start, and a lot of it is that lack of goal scoring. And obviously, João Klaus has left the team, has gone over to the Galaxy, and now he's apparently dealing with some injuries. Trying to replicate his production has been challenging. They have brought over Sergio Cordova, who was formerly of RSL and the Whitecaps, and he is somebody who they thought might be scoring goals, but he hasn't done that much. Simon Bescher, who was with Vasquez and Izuni in that goals not necessarily matching your X goals kind of category last year. He's been counted on as well. They are in the Elite Eight of the US Open Cup, though, and they are going to play Houston. At some point, you are going to root for St. Louis. I'm just going to say probably, right? And if indeed your rooting is successful, they'll be in the US Open Cup semifinals. So again, this is how that tournament works. And this is why it's so heartbreaking that Austin did not get past Louisville, because I think Houston was beatable in that game. Certainly Louisville almost had them. So coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? I mean, and then talking a little bit about also... Yeah, just the new coach, Johan Dammit, who is, they seem to be going kind of like a Montreal, Columbus, Wilfred Nancy disciple kind of pathway in terms of their approach with their new sporting director and this new coach. So they are trying certainly a kind of pattern of success that has worked in MLS with the Nancy train. We've, again, if you can't get Wilfred Nancy, which apparently no MLS team seems to be able to, we'll see. They are doing the next best thing, I guess, which is getting a Nancy disciple and trying to get there after the Lutz Van and Spiel experiment has come and gone.
A couple scattered thoughts on St. Louis for me. Lewin looked really good in Open Cup play. He's arguably why St. Louis was able to turn that game around for themselves. Right. In among the ugliest jerseys in the league, they're quote unquote gold ones. I had not seen them worn, but they look worse than I had imagined.
The concept is great. Like, they're honoring Tina Turner. Like, absolutely do that, but not like that.
Not like that. Not like that. Come on, guys.
We should mention Marcel Hartl, too, who is
indeed
replacing Lewin as the midfield engine, and with the two of them together in the lineup, which could potentially happen for at least parts of this game. That's pretty formidable. Like, they're good, solid MLS midfielders. Maybe they're not getting the goals that they should, but they have some players. So, and then of course they have a DP goalkeeper in Roman Berkey.
Yeah.
Who I believe is the only DP goalkeeper in the league right now. A path that has not worked for Colorado or Toronto in the past.
One of the weirder roster decisions across the whole league at present. And I think it's going to be interesting to see two things Sunday, both the play of Sunday itself and what it portends for when Austin goes to St. Louis in a few weeks' time. It's not that long before Austin will just play this team again. And I think they've got to not sit back on their heels. If this ends up being a solid statement win against St. Louis, they cannot afford to go to St. Louis on the back foot. They cannot go into that complacent. And I think the big thing about accountability is there's a certain amount of it that the coach can do, and there's a certain amount of it that their fellow players have to do to their teammates. Looking at the story of the season so far, Bidu and Sabovic being held out of the first game of the season for preseason red cards, I think one of the most judicious man management things that Nico Estevez has done, not letting that go. And I want to say that similarly, that created a bit more of a culture of accountability among the players from the way that they've been talking about keeping each other on point. And that's going to be incredibly important. There's only so much that a manager can do. The rest of it's got to be done among the squad. What the manager and his coaching staff sees within those players, that's going to determine those crucial decisions about who is continuing to earn their spot. Doesn't matter how good you are on paper. Doesn't matter how well the numbers roll out for you. If you are not showing up for the team in ways that actually meaningfully change the games, you might get held out. And guys that maybe start out on the bench It's not there's no universality to the way that Nico is making these decisions. I think John Gallagher's a great player. I think other people disagree with me in some respects, some of them vehemently so, like Landon Gotham. But I think he is a tremendous asset as a extremely fit, extremely with it substitute when they need late game, weird game state stability. He offers stability in a lot of places that matter. And so when you see a John Gallagher held out of the starting 11, I don't think that's anything against him or against what he's capable of doing. But I think that there may be that there are those intangibles, there are those things that we can only speculate on where you're like, why is this guy only subbing on? Is there some sort of mentality thing that like no amount of coaching is just getting through to this guy and it's a matter of repeatedly being forced to show that he's got to show up and eventually maybe he will, or eventually he will find himself on the transfer market? I think we're looking at where those decisions are going to go during that World Cup break. And just because somebody's held out of the starting lineup, I don't think means, oh, this person's definitely in danger of being transferred. They've got to be looking at things when they're bringing in a guy and they need a slot. Where does that slot come from?
One thing that really encouraged me about just the post-match locker talk was Brendan Hines-Ike talking about not getting too high or too low with an individual win or loss, and then just getting back to basics on defense. To me, the thing here that is really compelling and interesting about this particular match is just what happens result-wise. If they win, the next match after St. Louis is against Minnesota at Minnesota, which I think is their toughest one of the 5-game stretch. So if they're going into that with even a draw, I think, and maybe a little diminished confidence, I really worry about their performance in that and having another kind of slide. I still don't think that this team is consistent enough to where they are able to confidently come back from a loss in a way that will help to shape the season and get them on the trajectory they need to get to that 45-point mark. Mm-hmm. So again, I think if they win, then their chance of getting a result in Minnesota is much higher just based on momentum and confidence and trying to build something. And again, we have the opportunity, potentially Danny getting minutes, Owen getting minutes, Brandon getting minutes, and that'll be super helpful if they do that and show that they're rounding into form, and then we can get maybe more minutes and more contributions out of them. But in the meantime, people who have been there all year obviously need to be stable and step up and all that. Because again, integrating those players, it's great, it's awesome, it helps the team overall talent wise, but it's not going to be easy.
No, they know they've got stuff to work on. They're continuing to work on it. In the open practice we went to earlier this week, a group of us, this seems like a squad that is linking up well together. There's not distinct like cliques or like an in crowd and an out crowd or guys that are on the out. Like everybody's working and working hard, and different guys are seeing different levels of results. The benefit of the perspective that I got from that training, where we've been to open trainings in the past, is that they weren't on the furthest field away from us. And it was a first practice back after 2 days off. And it was mostly just guys syncing up and doing the competitive precision stuff and getting their focus back into place. It was a good opportunity to see that these guys, I mean, to things that John Gallagher and Brendan Hines-Ike and a few other guys have said to us in press availabilities, this is one of the more cohesive groups that this club has seen in its 5 years. And I think that it remains to be seen whether, to your point, they are able to rebuild their confidence such that they can weather a loss and it not send them on a 3-game slide of some sort.
Anything else we need to hit on this one before we send and print this?
Not really, man. I think we're good. Thanks to everybody who's reached out and who's contributed to my mom's campaign. Still got a long ways to go, and rent's due today, and we're not there yet. Okay. So absent something miraculous dropping out of the sky, it's going to be a tense week. So if you can share that link around wharitataughtme.com, that goes into detail as to what the last year or so of my life and her life has been like. And thanks again to everybody who's contributed. Some people have really bowled me over with messages they've sent, and just that anybody's contributed at all has been huge. And the second issue of the newsletter will be going out this weekend. So thanks again to everybody who's subscribed to Office Hours.
Yeah, nice. And then also Save the Caps. We're trying to get some more information on that campaign. There's a wall that you can sign. Apparently there is a potential buyer who has emerged who wants to move the team to Las Vegas. So we've got a villain apparently in this. So a tangible villain rather than just a hypothetical amorphous. Someone out there might move the team to Vegas. So as we get more information on that, I'm trying to reach out to folks to see about maybe getting them on. John Arnold had a really good article a few days ago in USA Today, where he is now the new national soccer reporter, which is awesome for him and for us, because he's awesome, and that's a good platform. And Seth, his editor, was on a few weeks ago to help us break down some stuff, and it's good. It's gonna be a good run for him.
Quick thing on the Save the Caps movement. I think by the time this drops, people might see a unified statement from the officially recognized Austin FC supporters groups. At the very least, Los Verdes, but I think Austin Anthem and La Morga saying that these heritage teams should remain in their communities. So eat that, haters. Yeah, it's the right side of history. It's been heartening to see so many people from across MLS fan bases, punditry, everything. It doesn't make sense to anybody other than merger and acquisition obsessed billionaires for that team to be anywhere other than Vancouver.
I don't even think they'd get the number of fans in Vegas that they would in Vancouver.
No question. I think they would top out at roughly what Las Vegas Lights manages.
They might get a few thousand more, but
the problem is Vegas has football and baseball coming and hockey and all this other stuff. It's yet another sport, not a destination reason to focus on that because, Vegas has no other sports. Otherwise, I think the Las Vegas Lights would be doing better because they've got interesting atmosphere and everything, but there just isn't that much interest in that area. I think it's a bad fit in about a dozen different ways. And if Vegas wants a franchise so bad, make them pony up the full franchise fee and become Team 31.
Yeah, I'm reasonably all for Vegas having an expansion team. All right, we'll leave it there. Save the Caps. Go learn how to spell and pronounce some difficult names, and we'll see you next week.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.